There is a book at Yale that nobody can read, not because it is locked away, not because the pages are destroyed, not because the writing is too faded to see. The pages are there, the ink is there, the drawings are there, plants, stars, bathing figures, strange diagrams, circular charts, lines of text written in a script that looks deliberate, fluent, and maddeningly close to language. But for more than a century, the book has resisted nearly everyone who tried to solve it. Linguists, cryptographers, historians, medievalists, codebreakers, computer scientists, amateurs with theories, experts with caution, again and again, people have announced solutions again and again. The manuscript has refused to stay solved. It is called the Voynich Manuscript. Yale's Voynich Library catalogs it as MS 408. And the mystery is not just what the book says. The mystery is what kind of thing it is: a lost language, a cipher, a medical text, an herbal, a hoax, a private system of knowledge, or a beautiful machine for creating meaning where meaning may not exist. The Voynich Manuscript is dangerous because it feels readable. It sits right on the edge of understanding, close enough to invite us in, far enough to keep us trapped outside. The Voynich Manuscript is a medieval codex. It is made of parchment. It contains hundreds of pages, though some are missing. Its pages are filled with illustrations and a flowing, unknown script. The writing moves confidently from left to right. The lines are regular. The words seem separated. The scribal hand looks practiced. This is not a random scatter of symbols. It looks like someone knew exactly what they were doing. That is part of the problem. If it looked like nonsense, it would be easier to dismiss. But it behaves like a manuscript. It has structure. It has sections, it has repeated patterns, it has visual themes. Some pages appear botanical, with drawings of plants that often do not match known species cleanly. Some pages look astronomical or astrological, with circles, stars, and zodiac-like imagery. Some show small nude figures, often in strange greenish pools, tubes, or bathing scenes. Some pages contain complex foldouts and circular diagrams. The book feels organized, but the organizing principle remains hidden. It is like walking through a library where every label is written in a language no one recognizes. You can see the shelves, you can see the categories, you can feel intelligence in the arrangement, but the door to meaning will not open. The first discipline in any Voynich story is separating what is known from what is imagined. We know the manuscript is real. We know it is held by Yale's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library. We know it has been studied intensely. We know radiocarbon dating of the parchment places it in the early 15th century range. That does not automatically date the writing to the same moment with perfect certainty, but it gives a strong medieval anchor for the material. We know the book passed through later owners, including the rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich, whose name became attached to it. We know that many proposed translations have failed to convince the broader scholarly community. And we know that no universally accepted reading exists. That last sentence is important. The Voynich manuscript attracts solved headlines constantly. Someone claims it is Latin shorthand. Someone claims it is proto-Romance. Someone claims it is an encoded women's health text. Someone claims it is Turkish. Someone claims it is Hebrew. Someone claims it is an elaborate fake. The internet loves each new solution because the word solved feels satisfying. But the manuscript has a way of turning solved into not so fast. A real solution would need more than a few translated words. It would need consistent grammar. It would need repeatable readings. It would need to explain the whole text, not only chosen passages. It would need to fit the images, the manuscript context, and the statistical behavior of the script. That has not happened in a widely accepted way. So the honest status remains: real book, medieval material, unknown script, unresolved meaning. The Voynich text does not look like chaotic invention. That is why it has survived as a serious puzzle. The symbols repeat in patterned ways. Certain signs appear more often than others. Some clusters behave like words. Some words appear in similar positions. The text has statistical features that make it feel language-like. But language-like is not the same as readable language. This is where the mystery becomes difficult. If the manuscript contains a natural language written in an unknown script, then the patterns make sense. If it contains an enciphered language, the patterns might also make sense. If it is generated nonsense, then the maker somehow produced nonsense with enough structure to fool generations of readers. That is possible too. Humans are very good at generating patterns. A skilled scribe or hoaxer could create a system that looks meaningful without carrying ordinary meaning. But that does not settle the case, because a hoax that elaborate raises its own questions. Who made it? For whom? Why invest so much labor? Was the goal money? Prestige, esoteric performance? Private amusement, protection of knowledge? The Voynich Manuscript does not let any theory rest easily. Every explanation solves one problem and creates another. Many viewers first enter the Voynich through its plant drawings. The manuscript looks, at least in part, like an herbal. Medieval herbals were books about plants and their uses, especially medicinal uses, that make sense of the illustrations at first glance. Roots, leaves, stems, flowers, labels, beside plants. A practical reader might imagine a book of remedies, recipes, or botanical knowledge, but the plants are strange. Some seem partly recognizable, some appear composite, some look like no known plant at all. The roots can be exaggerated or symbolic. The leaves and flowers do not always belong together in ways botanists expect. That does not mean the manuscript is fake. Medieval plant illustration was not always naturalistic in the modern scientific sense. Images could be copied, stylized, distorted, or symbolic. A plant drawing might preserve a tradition rather than a precise field observation, but it does mean we should be careful. If a proposed translation identifies a plant, the image should support it. If the image does not fit, the theory weakens. The herbal pages invite interpretation because they seem practical, but they also resist it because the plants live in that unsettling space between nature and imagination. The manuscript becomes even stranger outside the botanical pages. Some sections contain circular diagrams with stars and zodiac-like imagery. Others show small figures, often women standing or sitting in pools, tubs, or connected tube-like structures. These images have inspired many theories: astrology, medicine, alchemy, balneology, the study or practice of therapeutic bathing, women's health, cosmology, ritual. A symbolic map of the body. It is easy to see why medieval medicine often connected the body to the heavens. Astrology was not fringe in the medieval world. The positions of planets and stars could be considered relevant to health, timing, and diagnosis. Bathing, humors, fertility, and the body could all belong to a larger system of correspondences, so the manuscript's mixture of plants, stars, and bodies is not automatically bizarre for a medieval context. What is bizarre is that the text refuses to explain it. The images feel like they are part of a system, but we cannot read the labels. We cannot hear the author's categories. We cannot tell where medicine ends and cosmology begins. The book gives us the visual surface of a worldview while withholding the key. That is why it is so hypnotic. It does not look empty. It looks locked. One of the oldest instincts is to treat the Voynich manuscript as a code. Maybe the writing hides a known language. Maybe the author used substitution. Maybe each symbol represents a letter. Maybe the system is more complex. Maybe it uses abbreviations, null characters, transposition, or invented signs. This theory is attractive because it gives us a clear mission: break the code, find the plainch test, reveal the book. The problem is that simple cipher approaches have not solved it. If the manuscript is encrypted, the system may be unusual, or the underlying language may be unexpected, or the text may not be a normal language at all. Historical cryptography existed in the medieval and early modern worlds, but the Voynich text does not behave like an easy classroom cipher. This is why professional caution matters. It is not enough to map a few symbols to letters and produce a phrase. A decipherment has to scale. It has to work across pages. It has to predict readings. It has to explain repeated forms. It has to handle the images. It has to convince people who did not create the theory. Most Voynich solutions fail because they are too flexible. They can make one passage say something interesting, but they cannot make the whole manuscript speak consistently. That is not a solution. That is pattern hunting. The hoax theory is often treated as the boring answer. It is not boring. If the Voynich manuscript is a hoax, it may be one of the most impressive manuscript hoaxes ever made. A hoax would have required parchment, ink labor, a consistent script, illustrations, visual organization, a sense of linguistic pattern, and enough internal structure to keep experts arguing for generations. That is not casual nonsense. The strongest hoax theory asks whether the manuscript was created to look valuable, mysterious, or authoritative without containing meaningful text. In a world where rare books, secret knowledge, alchemy, astrology, and courtly curiosity had value, a mysterious, unreadable book could be useful. It could impress a buyer, it could signal hidden wisdom, it could become an object of prestige. But the hoax theory has its own burden. Why make it so extensive? Why create patterns that seem language-like? Why produce images with such internal consistency? Why use medieval materials? Was it made in the 15th century? Was it made later on older parchment? Could later forgery explain the material evidence? Hoax is possible, but it is not a magic eraser. It must explain the same stubborn details as every other theory. The Voynich Manuscript is almost perfectly designed to generate false breakthroughs. Its script has repeated forms. Its images suggest topics. Its pages create sections. Its mystery is famous. And human beings are extremely good at finding partial matches. If you believe the manuscript is about medicine, you can look for medical words. If you believe it is about astrology, you can look for star language. If you believe it is a hidden form of a known language, you can search until a few symbols seem to fit. The danger is confirmation. Once a theory begins to work in one place, the mind wants to protect it. Awkward lines become scribal errors. Untranslated words become special terms. Contradictions become exceptions, and soon the solution explains everything because it is flexible enough to explain anything. That is why real decipherment requires discipline. A solution must predict, it must be testable, it must work for people other than the proposer. It must reduce uncertainty, not create a private mythology. The Voynich Manuscript punishes weak methods. It lets you feel close to a breakthrough, then quietly refuses to confirm it. That refusal is frustrating, but it is also what keeps the manuscript honest. Part of the Voynich mystery is not in the book. It is in us. We want the book to mean something. We want there to be a message. We want the plants to name real remedies. We want the stars to encode a system. We want the strange bathing figures to belong to a lost medical tradition. We want the script to open. That desire shapes how we look. An unreadable book is almost unbearable. It feels like knowledge is present but withheld. A sealed box can be ignored. But a book that looks readable demands reading. The Voynich Manuscript turns literacy against us. We are used to texts surrendering meaning, street signs, messages, subtitles, labels, menus, maps. Text is supposed to answer. This text does not. It performs the gestures of communication while denying communication. That is why it becomes more than an academic puzzle. It becomes a psychological object, a mirror for the human need to decode. What would it take to solve the Voynich Manuscript? Not a headline, not a viral thread, not a handful of translated words. A real solution would need to identify the writing system or generation method. It would need to explain the grammar or structure. It would need to translate large portions consistently. It would need to connect text and images in a convincing way. It would need to explain why earlier attempts failed. It would need to survive review by specialists. It would need to be reproducible. If it is a cipher, the method must decode the manuscript broadly. If it is a natural language, the linguistic behavior must make sense. If it is a hoax, the generation process must explain the statistical and visual patterns. If it is a private artificial system, the theory must show how the system works and why it was used. Until then, the correct stance is not defeat. It is disciplined uncertainty. We do not know. That sentence can feel unsatisfying. But sometimes we do not know is the most accurate and most respectful answer. The Voynich Manuscript remains unsolved, not because nobody has tried, but because trying is not enough. It is a real medieval object with real pages, real ink, real illustrations, and a real history of obsession. It may contain meaningful text. It may conceal a language. It may encode knowledge. It may be a hoax. It may be something stranger, a private system built for a purpose that no longer survives, but no solution has yet become strong enough to close the case. And maybe that is why the manuscript endures. It sits at the boundary between evidence and imagination. Too structured to dismiss, too opaque to read, too beautiful to ignore. Every generation brings new tools to it. Photography, linguistics, cryptography, statistics, machine learning, and still the book waits. Not silent, exactly. It is full of writing, full of images, full of apparent intention, but unread. The Voynich Manuscript is not just a book nobody can read. It is a reminder that the past does not owe us a translation. Sometimes it leaves us a door, a handle, a keyhole, and no key. If you want another ancient object where interpretation keeps shifting as evidence improves, watch the Shigir idol next. The Voynich Manuscript hides meaning in unreadable text. The Shigir idol hides meaning in the survival of wood, time, and a face older than civilization as we usually imagine it.